From historic and haunted hotels harboring the souls of those long past, to creepy and cold cathedrals where shattered romances have left supernatural scars. According to legend, the City of a Thousand Trades also plays home to its fair share of ghost stories, which is why the Speakeasy is excited to bring you our list of picks for the most haunted places in Birmingham, Alabama. Let's jump right in. Number 5. Oak Hill Cemetery. Oak Hill Cemetery, located just north of downtown Birmingham, boasts its titles as both the oldest cemetery in the city as well as its first public burying grounds, designated as such from the time of its opening. The property the graveyard now sits on originally belonged to one James M. Ware. In 1869, it was used as a resting place for the infant daughter of one Robert H. Henley. The original 21.5 acres plotted for use in future burials was sold to the city shortly after in 1873. A number of notable figures were interred here on the grounds over the years, including 9 out of 10 of the landholders who founded Birmingham, several early mayors and politicians, Civil War veterans, and even one soldier from the Revolutionary War. A large section of the grounds was also sanctioned off to hold the bodies of the victims of the 1873 cholera epidemic. With the establishment of Elmwood Cemetery in 1900 and many of the city's wealthier inhabitants choosing it in favor of Oak Hill, the state of the old burying grounds declined rapidly. The Oak Hill Memorial Association was incorporated in 1913 to clean up, improve, and maintain the state of the grounds. Oak Hill was actually expanded slightly over time to 22.3 acres, which wasn't quite adequate for the death rate, with Oak Hill finally filling to capacity and unable to expand any further by the 1930s. Today, the property is still managed, maintained, and cherished by the Oak Hill Memorial Association, who continues to host tours and events on site. Burials still occur, but more rarely and with very limited options. The most famous local legend surrounding Oak Hill tells the tale of a successful cabinet maker, Edward Erswell, and his wife, Catherine. Through the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the duo was forced to make a change in profession to coffin makers, which their skill sets were strangely suited for. As the story goes, Catherine desired to be buried in the more fashionable Elmwood, but Edward passed first and had already arranged for a vault in Oak Hill. Many reports detail the muffled but also affectionate sounds of arguing coming from within their tomb, as Edward spends an eternity's worth of tongue lashings with his beloved for his big real estate mistake. Also reported across the grounds and not thought to be related to the Erswells are orbs caught in photographs, extreme cold spots, and the feeling of being consistently watched. Disembodied voices have been heard throughout the area, and shadowy figures have been sighted slinking behind markers. Lastly, on one tomb, seashells can be found on the step. Strangely, whenever someone has removed these shells, new shells appear overnight as if by magic. Number 4. The Cathedral of St. Paul. The Cathedral of St. Paul, or more commonly and simply St. Paul's Cathedral, is a historic church located off of 3rd Avenue North that boasts the impressive mantle as acting as the mother church of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Birmingham. Initially, in 1872, a small wooden church was constructed on the lot next to where our current church sits. Its congregation grew quickly, however, outgrowing the inadequate structure. When the need for a larger church arose, plans were put in motion and our current cathedral was completed as a simple parish church in 1893 by contractor Lawrence Scully. Just before the parish was opened, however, Scully was killed in a tragic carriage rollover. The church served faithfully for decades, but began showing signs of wear and tear through the 1930s and 40s. It underwent extensive renovations in 1955 with several modern amenities including air conditioning and updated electrical wiring installed. With the creation of the Diocese of Birmingham in 1969, the humble parish church was elevated to cathedral status. Bishop Joseph Voth acted as the first bishop of diocese, serving until his death in 1987. Bishop Voth was laid to rest in the cathedral's courtyard. In 1992, a series of repairs, renovations, and modernizations were conducted for the cathedral's centennial. A complete restoration of the exterior was completed in 2015. St. Paul's Cathedral remains open to the public to this day, holding regular masses, service, and community events. Chillingly, stories tell of a tragedy that took place surrounding the cathedral, leading to some of its most famous paranormal activity. As the story goes, in 1921, lovers Ruth Stevenson and Pedro Guzman rushed to St. Paul's Cathedral to elope under Reverend James Coyle. Sadly, Ruth's father was a violent racist and member of the KKK. He hated Pedro for his Puerto Rican ancestry, and in his rage stormed the church, shooting and killing Reverend Coyle on the front porch of the rectory. Following the Reverend's murder, strange occurrences began happening across the property. Lights flickering or turning off on their own, rocking chairs moving as if someone invisible was sitting in them, doors opening and closing by themselves, and candles known to extinguish and, astonishingly, even light themselves. Activity became so extreme at a time that, in 1922, an exorcism was performed, the old rectory torn down and replaced, but it's said this only caused activity to get stronger. Also reported around the cathedral are disembodied footsteps, voices, shadowy apparitions, the feeling of being followed, and the sound of a phantom gunshot. Lastly, a figure dressed in white, thought to be the spirit of Reverend Coyle himself, has been sighted throughout the building, bringing an undeniable calmness to any room or area he manifests in. Number 3. Lynn Henley Research Library. Lynn Henley Research Library is a historic library located in Lynn Park that acted as the primary location of the Birmingham Public Library from its completion up until 1984. This library was originally constructed in 1927 to replace an earlier library that had burned down in a fire 2 years prior in 1925. The loss from the fire was massive, and funds were donated from across the country in order to replace knowledge that had been lost. In 1954, the Birmingham Public Library was renovated, a process which saw changes in the forms of lighting, flooring, and, much like our previous haunt, the addition of an air conditioning unit. Interestingly enough, during these renovations, several bizarre treasures were found stored around the library. Jars of preserved snakes, mounted moose, ram, and deer heads, a knee pump organ, and a suitcase full of traditional Inuit clothing, to name a few. In 1984, the new Birmingham Library was constructed across the street, with the old library being renovated and reopened as the Lynn Henley Research Library, named in honor of the families of Charles Lynn and John C. Henley, who helped fund the project. Eventually, an enclosed pedestrian bridge was added to allow for foot traffic from the Lynn Henley to the central branch. The building's murals were cleaned and restored in 1989, with the ceiling decorations following shortly after. The Lynn Henley Research Library remains open to the public to this day, boasting several impressive collections, displays, and a series of scheduled events each year. Over its lengthy existence, a number of inexplicable phenomena have been reported from within Lynn Henley, including objects moving on their own, extreme cold spots, an inexplicable feeling of anxiety, disembodied footsteps, flickering lights, and the feeling of being followed and closely watched by an unseen presence. A ghostly man has been sighted often across the property, smoking, seemingly unaware of modern restrictions. This is thought to be the ghost of Fant Thornley, former director of the library from 1953 until his passing in 1970. Thornley is often sighted on the third floor in the elevator and has been known to roll pencils from empty rooms or areas to visitors. Also reported throughout the library are apparitions in old-fashioned clothing, browsing the rows of books or staring at artwork, the elevator acting erratically as if it has a mind of its own, and staff returning to areas to find entire shelves completely rearranged in less than 5 minutes or so. On a closing note, if you visit Lynn Henley, keep an eye on your valuables, as a number of stories detail instances in which individuals discover personal possessions have gone missing, only to locate them later hidden amongst the many books. Number 2. The Tutwiler Hotel. Officially the Hampton Inn & Suites, Birmingham downtown Tutwiler, this historic hotel located just off Park Place in downtown Birmingham boasts its claim as the first modernized hotel across the expanse of the city. The Tutwiler originally opened its doors in 1914 at a different location under the ownership of one Robert Jemison and sporting a large investment from one Major Edward M. Tutwiler. Upon its launch, the hotel served as a hub for celebrities, politicians, dignitaries, and other high society of its day. In 1929, one Louis J. Drinkler, a businessman who owned a chain of hotels across the country, took over the old inn's lease, changing its name to the Drinkler Tutwiler Hotel, while also adding in a restaurant and piano bar. In 1967, the hotel was sold once again to the Great Southern Investment Corporation, who renovated the building entirely. Sadly, renovations didn't drum up desired business, and the hotel ended up closing its doors in 1972. The property was liquidated and the historic building was sadly demolished. In 1986, the historic Ridgely Apartments, which were constructed in 1913 also by Robert Jemison and Major Tutwiler, were converted into a new version of the Tutwiler Hotel. The new-ish building underwent complete renovations and modernizations, lasting from 2005 to 2007. The Tutwiler remains open to the public to this day, its legacy cherished through Hampton by Hilton. Over the years, a number of accounts have led many to speculate that Tutwiler may be harboring a number of restless spirits from the building's past, with reports from both guests and employees detailing disembodied footsteps through the halls, faucets turning on and off by themselves, and, disturbingly, the feeling of being watched while completely alone, even in locked rooms. The most famous spirit thought to haunt the hotel is that of none other than Major Edward M. Tutwiler himself. As local legend has it, the Major can get pretty cranky if he's not shown respect. And, incidentally, some staff members have resorted to telling him goodnight each and every evening before leaving, to keep him appeased and activity at a low. Also reported across the property and not thought to be related to the Major are lights turning on and off by themselves, doors opening and closing on their own, the stove flicking on by itself when the kitchen is closed, and objects have been seen floating spatially through the air. A number of guests have reported being awakened in the middle of the night, feeling chilled to the bone and hearing banging on their room door. When they go to check who's there, there's no one in sight. Also reported throughout the Tutwiler are the disembodied sounds of children laughing and playing, extreme and unnatural cold spots, and gusts of wind inside while all doors and windows are sealed. Lastly, on one occasion, a hotel bartender reports leaving the kitchen after closing up, realizing he forgot something and returning only to see a full dinner being prepared and set up by invisible hands, complete with a self-lighted candle. Number 1. The Alabama Theater. The Alabama Theater is a historic movie theater and live performance venue located in the heart of downtown Birmingham that boasts the reputation of being one of the largest movie theaters in the city, as well as the first public building in Alabama to, get this, have air conditioning installed. Pioneers we can all respect come summertime. The theater itself was originally constructed in 1927 by the Paramount Publix Corporation, yes, that very same Paramount as in studios, as an Alabama showcase for Paramount films. It served primarily as a movie theater, aside from its utilization in the annual Miss Alabama pageant, as well as weekly Mickey Mouse Club meetings. The Alabama's organ, a Wurlitzer Opus 1783, was designed by legendary theater organist Jesse Crawford for use in Publix theaters, and was perfect alongside its silent pictures. In 1987, longtime owners of the theater declared bankruptcy, but Birmingham Landmarks Incorporated stepped in, purchasing the property outright and opening the old building officially as the Alabama Theater for the Performing Arts. In 1998, the Alabama underwent a complete restoration, with all of its original gold leaf either cleaned or wholly replaced. Fresh carpets and seat cushions were installed, while the stage was given all new curtains and an organ chamber. Today, in addition to screening classic films, the Alabama Theater also hosts the Alabama Symphony, the Alabama Ballet, various stage and musical artists, and, according to a multitude of ghost stories, a mecca of paranormal activity. One tale tells that the property is haunted by a former organist. It's said that he loved the theater so his soul decided to stay behind to watch over it. To this day, the organist has been known to appear mainly on stage as a shadowy figure, often when someone is playing the organ, which he still may consider his. Also reported throughout the Alabama are locked doors opening on their own, open windows slamming shut, and the sounds of disembodied footsteps sometimes en masse coming from empty areas, usually after closing. Another story surrounding the theater tells that during its construction, a worker fell from the balcony to his death. Many report hearing his heavy bootsteps from this very same balcony, as well as the stairwell leading up to. And on several more disturbing occasions, those who have wandered too near have almost literally been pushed back down the stairs by an unseen but powerful force. Also reported throughout the theater and usually met with general terror are instances in which chairs next to unsuspecting viewers begin raising and lowering on their own, as if someone invisible is occupying them, and several have actually claimed to feel a chill as their ghostly seat neighbors get up and walk past them. Also reported across the property are props and costume pieces found in strange places, disembodied voices, and orbs and odd half-formed images caught in the background of photographs. A number of unofficial investigations have yielded high EMF levels. EVPs are commonly heard in the backgrounds of recordings and phone calls, and many have encountered a strange, misty figure floating through the audience section, especially during rehearsals. Lastly, and rather eerily, a number of full-bodied apparitions in old-timey garb have been sighted across the premises. During one such instance, an entire group of witnesses described a ghostly woman appearing for only a second before a male figure stepped violently right through an adjacent wall and dragged her back inside. With its incredible history, magnificent range of works, and list of hauntings a mile long, we think the Alabama Theater is going to be a tough act to follow as our pick for the most haunted place in Birmingham. Thank you all for tuning in to our list of picks for the most haunted places in Birmingham. If you enjoyed hearing our history and stories as much as we enjoyed telling them to you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you know when fresh content is coming out. Also, like and follow our new Facebook page at facebook.com/TheRealSpeakeasy. That's all lowercase, no spaces. There, you can stay informed regarding upcoming content, participate in polls to decide the future of our channel, and contribute your own warped ideas to our manifest of uploads and information, as well as share your personal paranormal experiences with us directly, which, with your permission, we may even feature in one of our videos. Throw us a like if you feel we deserve it, and most importantly, share this video and our channel with anyone you think could use a good scare. We'll catch you next time.